This is Viktor Frankl. He was a neurologist and a psychiatrist. He lived through the concentration camps of the Second World War. He survived starvation, slave labor, watched countless people die. You know what the concentration camps were. We won't dwell on it. Anyway, during that time, he had a revelation, which was this. Humans are an animal driven by purpose. Above all, we strive for a sense of meaning in our lives, and if we don't get it, we get extremely, extremely sad. And by the time I finished ranting at you today, I hope you will agree with this too. For the longest time, a good day for a human consisted of finding food, finding water, and not getting fucking eaten. And even though hunter-gatherers probably had more free time than we do, chances are the focus of their lives was to stay alive. Next, we developed civilization, and along came organized religion. I'm not shitting on religion here, believe whatever you like, but whether the notorious God does exist or not, it arguably gave humans a purpose in the universe. We were special, we were loved, sometimes, and we actually meant something in the grand scheme of things. Lately though, things are getting a bit complicated. If you're listening to this, there's a very strong chance you will never live through a war directly, you will never experience prolonged starvation, or have to worry about getting access to clean drinking water. I say this not to guilt you, but just to point out how much has changed for lots of us. However, whereas before, the purpose of one's life was focused around not getting dead, or remembering to worship the god of your choice, today lots of us have more time to think about life, and we still don't have an agreed sense of what we're doing here. There is a shadow in the background of modern life. It is best described as having enough food, hopefully having enough money to live on, not needing to worry about lions, and still being sure that some vital thing is missing. And that missing thing, Viktor Frankl argued, is meaning. Frankl noticed that lots of his patients had this sensation of total meaninglessness in their lives. He called this the existential vacuum. When I got my cat, I asked the vet, "What do cats need, please?" And she said, "Food, water, and fuss." I give her these things, and she seems, as far as I can tell, pretty cool with the whole arrangement. At no point has she demanded to know the purpose of her existence or the correct interpretation of quantum mechanics. It doesn't seem that easy to satisfy humans though, because we are very, very clever animals. And oh look, it's 1:30 pop psychology o'clock. Maybe you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's not accepted by everyone, but it's a pretty good rough guide. So we're fairly sure humans need basic stuff first. Food, water, sleep, etika, then security and safety and no getting nommed by lions, yes, then belonging and love, as in family, intimate relations, then self-esteem, to be respected, to be appreciated, and then finally, self-actualization, or becoming that thing one actually wants to be. Lots of humans, it seems, are somewhere between here and here. Hopefully, lots of us are living in relative safety, and that's grand, but the general message of 21st century life, for being self-actualized, at least in some parts of the world, is make a demonies or buy lots of property or something, and then you'll miraculously be happy and fulfilled. Well, nothing wrong with money or houses, but it seems pretty evidential that is not enough for purpose and happiness in itself. A few recent studies hinted that having money does actually make you happier. Unless you win the lottery, interestingly, then you're probably fucked, linked below. But there does seem to be a limit. A Princeton study a while ago suggested that above about $75,000, happiness and well-being doesn't increase that much. Above a certain threshold of being able to support yourself and your family, most humans don't get too much happier above that with money alone. So something else is required for happiness. Happiness is one of the few things humans try to achieve for its own sake. But there's a problem with happiness, which is that most of us seem to behave thinking, well, when I've bought, finished, driven, built, completed X, I'll just be happy forever, and nothing will ever hurt again. If you've ever tried being human, you may have noticed that this is not how happiness works. Ever. Usually, over a long enough period of time, humans revert back to their baseline hedonic set point, their default happiness position. This is called the hedonic treadmill, and it's a fundamental shit part of the human condition. But what's interesting is that there doesn't seem to be a meaning treadmill in the same way. For example, one of the most significant life events for lots of humans will be having more humans eventually. And parenting itself seems to start off feeling pretty cool, but gets a bit fucking stressful for about 20 years. And in those 20 years, even though the euphoria dies off, and many parents at times wish to eat their young, the feeling of purpose does not die off. This also appears to apply to long-term relationships that work and professions people genuinely actually enjoy. There may be difficult weeks or months, but overall, if it's in line with what an individual actually wants, inherently, then the thing continues to be meaningful for a long time, possibly even for life. Meaning seems like a far more sustainable goal than happiness. And according to what we know so far, if you have the first, the second often follows, even in hard times. Years ago, I had a shit temp job in an office, and I spent the entire time being incompetent and fantasizing about getting out. And my boss, who was a nice lady, seemed genuinely happy filling in spreadsheets and playing solitaire when the big boss wasn't looking. And she was very clever, so one day I asked her why she liked working there. And she said that when she was little, she used to dream about working in an office and having a desk and going to the coffee machine, blah blah, and now she was living the dream. And I realised at that moment just how different humans' motivations can be. If working there was in line with what she wanted to do, and she was happy doing it, which she was, then who the hell was I to tell her otherwise? Unfortunately, humans are not cats, and food and water and fuss just ain't gonna cut it. Most of us seem to want to be trying at something we enjoy, but the spectrum of human enjoyment is so vast it's ridiculous, so there's not gonna be some magical human science that says, alright you fucks, everyone eat 5 cream eggs a day, learn the accordion, get a job as a telephone sanitizer, and then you'll find purpose in life. It's something a lot more complicated than that. And Viktor Frankl's position was that finding an individual sense of meaning is a journey the individual has to undertake alone. Sometimes you come across people who are much older than you, but are still self-centered or compulsive liars or whatever. And it's worrying because you assumed if you just live long enough, you'll work shit out and stuff will be fine. And here's someone who lived a long time and somehow is still an awful person. One day I was talking to a Buddhist nun about this, and she said, well, obviously, you have to try at being wise or you'll spend your whole life never growing. Meaning is a jumper that you have to knit yourself. That seemed quite clever and quite true. Oh, a jumper is a sweater, to those of you living in certain breakaway British territories, what? Where we are now might be part of a huge experiment in human history, which is give some people miraculous technology, give them education and Mars bars and VR, and see if that provides them with a purpose in life. For some of them, lots of them, it doesn't seem to. The question then is, yeah, thanks for the technology and the education and everything, but life still feels empty on some level for some of us. And what the hell do we do now, please? Every age has its trials. The existential vacuum might be ours. If you take away the constant threat of death, purpose is given back to the individual. And that's bad, and that's good. If one actually pursues some individual sense of meaning, whether it be in love, or work, or whatever, that's grand. If not, an entire lifetime can be spent, and many have been spent, doing nothing about it. The game of life begins with you appearing on the outskirts of this huge, dark forest. You ask a few people what we're all doing here, but no one, including your parents or teachers, really has a clue. Now you're told that inside the forest is real life, and if you go in, you'll have to do battle with all sorts of monsters, like loneliness, everything feeling futile, shit jobs, people being vindictive, your own limitations, not knowing what you inherently want, worrying about income, worrying about disease, the death of people close to you, universal human stuff, right? But facing up to it, actually saying, fuck you, I'm gonna learn or make or become whatever it is, or just refuse to die on the inside, despite living in a universe that is clearly not kind, and where suffering is inevitable, that might be the only way of achieving some sense of individual meaning. What's that Ray Bradbury line? Ask no guarantees, ask for no security. There never was such an animal. And if there were, it would be related to the great sloth, which hangs upside down in a tree all day, every day, sleeping its life away. Just being alive in the first place is fucking ridiculous, and it's amazing that most of us are even keeping it together at all. It's one thing to get called into creation without being asked first. It's an insult to injury to then be expected on top of that to work out what the hell you're doing here in the first place. And I think there's a pretty good chance that Viktor Frankl and a bunch of others have already shown us how to beat that problem. Purpose seems to be personal. It comes from the inside, from a sense of enjoying one's work, from living around people one actually loves, from striving to know, even if only in a small human way, for a short human time, what we're even doing here in the first place, individually. If not that, then what the hell was the point in being here? And if that feels like a challenge, well, that's to be expected, because everyone else is playing the same game, whether they admit it or not, however much older, however much more powerful they might be. What is it with these pricks one meets at parties sometimes who claims they've got it all worked out? Are you serious? Have you even noticed where you are? You're fine with just being called into creation, are you? You're alright with just popping down the shop for an ice cream and pretending anything makes sense? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh yeah, welcome to existence. Everything's confusing, the universe is actively hostile, and you don't even know what the conditions for your own happiness are. Oh, by the way, you're sentient meat standing on a living spaceship. Best of luck coming to terms with that one. Yeah, like getting very confused about all this isn't entirely natural for literally everyone. Like we have anything more here than just each other. No one knows what they're doing, everybody shits, and really no one knows what they're doing. And that's alright. That's to be expected. Knit your own meaning jumper if you can. Lots of other humans did, and it seemed to work out for them. Cool, rant over. Good luck with your fucking lives then. Oh, what's that? It's The Prince of Milk, that book I wrote ages ago, out as a paperback, finally. You can get it on Amazon if you want. It's a story about what happens when the gods misbehave, basically. It has a new cover, a new introduction, and you can actually hold it in your hands and shit. Bye.